All right, taking a break from my scale point stuff here to show you a little better idea what I'm doing with the electronics in the 8x8. So with the dual motor setup, one of the motors runs the rear axles and one of them runs the fronts. So the two independent transmissions in there. So I've got independent control between front and rear. This here allows me to turn on or off one or the other. I've got one of the switches set up so I can just disable the rear and dig with the front like we do in Pro Class and Super. It also lets me, through the mixing of the radio, control my overdrive. So if I mix my percentage, so when I'm 100% front but only 90% rear, now I've got 10% overdrive, and that's done through the radio. There's nothing else needed gearing wise, anything. They can all be stock axles. And then I can set them for 100, 100, and now they're all driven exactly the same. So when I'm towing, pulling my trailer, cooler, whatever, you're not wearing the tires down unnecessarily. So what I've got servo wise, so I got two different servos and two steering axles up front. Just got some Amazon servos in there for now. The wires come back here through a Y adapter, plugged into channel 1, just like normal. So channel 1 is my steering, and that runs both front axles together. Channel 3 does the same thing with the rear axles. And again, there's mixing involved in the radio, and I'll show you that in a minute here. If I disable the mixing, turning off channel 3, now I'm only steering with the fronts. If I use my VR knob on the radio here, I've got the Radiolink RC6GS, that will control my independent steering for the rear so I can crab walk. I normally don't use that feature because I'm not very great with the crab walking, and it's just kind of not really necessary with this rig, but it's possible. I can just disable that switch in the radio settings pretty quickly or turn it back on if I want to play. So servos, channel 1 and channel 3, like normal. Speed controls use similar functions, similar way with channels 2 and 4. Channel 2 is normally your throttle, so that's going to run my front end. And then I've got channel 4 mixed to it with the radio settings there. You could also use a Y adapter if you didn't care about the mixing percentages and whatnot, or being able to dig and burn, whatever. You could just do a Y adapter just like this, and that was going to run both speed controls together. If you ran brushed motors, I haven't fit a brushed 380 in here yet. I'm having a hard time getting my hands on the one I want. You could run a single speed control to both motors. Problem is, if one gets bound up, you're going to get what's called clod stall, and that motor is just not going to work, and the other one's going to keep fighting. Whatever, it's, that's been going on for 20 years or more with the clod busters, but you can get around it. What I've got going on is dual drone speed controls. This is one that I'm kind of prototype testing here. Normally, I run the Reflash iFlight 55A speed control. Sell these through Deluxe Fab as the suppressor. I can stack two of them together. Doesn't take up much room. In fact, it's about the same size as my receiver. Half the size of the receiver. And this runs both motors right there. When we sell them for comp rigs, I stack a small BEC voltage regulator on there to run the receiver, but in this case here, there's no way that small BEC is going to run all 4 steering servos. So got a JST connector on there to an external Castle BEC. I just pulled the dual suppressor out because I was just testing this new layout, this new way of stacking it here, and I gotta get this in my comp rig for an event next weekend. So I've got these Holy Bro ESCs in here. I think they're rated 45 amp continuous, 80 amp max, which is plenty enough for this rig here. The other ones are rated 55, 65, and they're fantastic. I've gone through a couple hundred of these through the website. We run these in all of our personal rigs and all the shop rigs. But this one here is a little more burst power capable. Just messing with tuning. There's a firmware software issue with them that we're kind of trying to work out, see what's up there. So anyways, I'm gonna get this thing back together because I'm gonna go drive it through the stream and through the woods and here and stuff here in a little bit. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to show you what I got going on. It's basically a 2-channel system split up into 4 channels, and I've got independent control of each. Now, the receiver looks a little cluttered when I get everything plugged in. So this is a 7-channel receiver. I plug steer and servo into 1. You see my front motor plugged into 2. Rear servo is plugged into 3, and then my rear motor is plugged into 4 already. 5 and 6 are open. Those are gonna be my front and rear winches. I'm gonna build some servo winches here soon. And then channel 7 is actually being used as the input from this BEC. So that plugs into my JST, my batteries, and then these steering servos plugged in. So I kind of got a lot going on right now. Haven't trimmed up any wires yet because I've got, I still gotta get the body mounted, the exo cage and stuff. This is all gonna come back out of here another time, at least once more to get that stuff welded up and painted and everything. But basically I just try to keep it drivable. As far as my radio, and this is gonna vary a lot depending on what kind of radio you got. So this is the RC6GS. I've got 6 channels there, and I'll show you what's up. So throttle works 2 and 4, and steering, let me bind this here. So steering is 1 and 3. Now you notice the direction is opposite because in order to 4-wheel steer, they kind of have to turn different directions. If I had them turn in the same direction, it's gonna crab walk. And you also see my percentages turned down. This thing gets pretty insane when I crank the steering percentage way up. I mean, it already spins around on itself and ends up upside down because of it sometimes. So there really isn't a need to have 100% rear steering. And most of the time, I just don't even drive with the rear steering anyway. It's just with the front, because the rear steer kind of throws me off a little bit. But anyways, this is what we got going on here. So on this particular radio, which I've modded a little bit, these are momentary switches for my winch control. They just return to center on their own. So this will be front winch, extend, retract, rear winch, extend, retract, steering servo, throttle, of course. This button here, this switch is gonna turn on or off. It's gonna enable or disable my mixing for my throttle. So if I hit my throttle, you got both of them going forward and back. Click that button there, and now I've got just the front end so I can dig. Click it again, and now I've got both. If I want to change the mixing percentage, I've got to go through the menu here a little bit, and it's not difficult to do. Like I said, this will vary a lot for everybody, but I go into my mixing, that's the steering. So throttle mixing is telling me when I activate my throttle, it's going to control channel 4 100%. 100% forward, 100% reverse. Now, if I want overdrive mixed in, I would set it up to do maybe 90%, 95% forward, but I still like 100% reverse because you don't need overdrive when you're reversing, typically. You don't want underdrive technically when you're reversing. But I've got overdrive gears going on in here, which will probably come out at some point, but so I just run 100% for now. So throttle activates channel 4, 100%. So that's my mixing for my 2 motors. Steering, similarly, tells me when I activate my steering, it's going to control channel 3, and it's only going to give me 50% of my steering. If I want more mixed steering, if I want sharper steering with the rear axles, I'm going to bump these numbers up. So if I want the rear axles to steer just as much as the front, I can set these at 100 if they're the same servo. This is the display I'm normally looking at. So again, throttle, forward and back, enable, disable, click it with my thumb. Steering is similar, so that's 4-wheel steer. This button right here, if I enable or disable that, it's gonna give me just the front or all 4. Now I'll get this thing together here in a little bit, get all my stuff tied back in it and get it ready to go on the hill, and I'll post another video of how the vehicle runs and drives. Thanks.